The human mind is weird. What if I told you most of what you believe is just your brain trying to protect your ego?
The smarter you get, the more aware you are of your stupidity. The irony of intelligence is that the wiser you become, the more clearly you see how little you actually know. It's like stepping into a dark room and turning on the light. At first, you think it's enough to see what's in front of you, but the brighter the light gets, the more dust, cracks, and details appear that you didn't even realize were there. That's how knowledge works. The deeper you go, the bigger the world becomes. People who only know a little are often the ones who are most confident, because they haven't seen just how much there is that they don't know. But those who truly seek to understand the world are the first to admit they're still learning. Intelligence doesn't feed your ego, it humbles it. It doesn't make you feel above others. It makes you realize how small we all are in the face of truth. So, if lately you've been feeling like you know less than before, don't worry. That's growth.
You'd rather believe a sweet lie than face a painful truth.
We like to think we want the truth, but only when it doesn't hurt. When the truth shatters our comfort, our pride, or our illusions, we often choose to turn away. It's easier to believe that someone still loves you than to face the truth that they've changed. It's easier to think you're doing okay than to admit something inside you is broken. Sweet lies offer comfort. They let you stay where you are. But the truth? It demands action. It asks you to change, to confront, to grow. And that's why people often choose to stay in the illusion, because lies, even when false, are easier than truths that hurt. But the truth doesn't hurt because it's cruel. It hurts because it's real. And once you face it, you begin to rebuild, to heal, to evolve. You can't grow in a lie. You can only grow when you face what's real, no matter how much it stings. The pain of losing $100 is stronger than the joy of having it. There's something strange about how our emotions work. If you lose $100, you'll probably spend hours feeling regret, blaming yourself, playing the moment over and over in your head. But if someone gives you $100, you smile, say thanks, maybe treat yourself to something nice, and forget about it in a few minutes. That's not just a quirk, it's psychology. Our brains are wired to feel losses more deeply than gains. It's called loss aversion, and it explains why we're often more afraid of losing what we have than excited about what we could gain. It shows up everywhere, in relationships, in careers, in life choices. We hesitate to leave bad jobs because we're afraid of losing stability. We stay in toxic relationships because we're afraid of losing the familiar. But the more we let that fear control us, the more we shrink ourselves into lives that are smaller than what we deserve. Sometimes the fear of losing stops us from ever truly winning. So, yes, losing hurts. But not trying at all? That's a loss in itself.
The mind fears change so much that it chooses suffering over the chance to be happy. It sounds strange, but it's true. People will often stay in situations that make them miserable simply because they're familiar. The pain they know feels safer than the happiness they've never experienced. Change is scary even when it's for the better. The mind would rather endure a familiar kind of suffering than risk stepping into the unknown. That's why people stay in jobs that drain them, in relationships that hurt them, or in habits that slowly destroy them. Not because they want to suffer, but because they fear what might happen if they let go. The brain is wired to protect you, and to it, familiarity equals safety, even if that safety is an illusion. But here's the thing. Growth and happiness live on the other side of change. You can't reach new joy without letting go of old pain. The first step to healing is often stepping into fear. Yes, change is uncomfortable. Yes, it's risky. But staying stuck is a much bigger risk, one that costs you peace, potential, and time. So don't let the fear of change convince you to settle for suffering.
5. In most conversations, people care more about themselves than about what you're saying. We like to think people are listening to us, really listening. But the truth is, in most conversations, people are thinking about themselves. They're not focusing on what you're saying. They're waiting for their turn to talk. They're thinking about how they sound, how they look, or what they'll say next. It's not necessarily selfish. It's just human nature. The ego is always hungry for attention, validation, and control. That's why true listening is rare and powerful. You can feel when someone is fully present with you, not judging, not waiting to speak, but truly hearing you. And when you realize how rare that is, it changes how you communicate. You stop trying so hard to impress. You stop assuming everyone cares about your story. And you start listening more yourself. Because while most people are caught in their own mental noise, the ones who stand out, the ones who connect deeply, are the ones who know how to pause, be still, and actually listen.
Before truth can set you free, it tends to make you mad. Everyone says they want the truth, but few are ready for what it really means. Truth isn't polite. It doesn't always come dressed in comfort. Sometimes it hits you like a punch, sharp, sudden, and disruptive. It challenges your beliefs, exposes your blind spots, and shakes your sense of certainty. That's why before truth can free you, it often makes you angry. Angry at others, angry at yourself, angry at the time you feel you've wasted. But that anger is part of the process. It's a sign that something inside you is shifting. The ego resists truth because truth demands change. But the pain of facing it is temporary. What comes after is clarity, peace, and liberation. You can only heal what you're willing to face. So if you've recently encountered a truth that stung, don't run from it. Sit with it. Let it burn through the illusion, because on the other side of that discomfort is freedom.
The mind becomes a prison when we care too much about what others think. We talk a lot about freedom. Freedom to choose, to live, to be ourselves. But one of the biggest prisons we build is invisible, the fear of judgment. We shape our lives around what others might say, think, or assume. We edit ourselves. We shrink our dreams. We silence our voices. Not because we want to, but because we've been trained to believe that being accepted is more important than being authentic. The truth is, you can't live fully if you're constantly performing for others. No matter how carefully you walk, someone will still judge you. So why not walk your own path? Caring about others is human, but being trapped by their opinions is a choice. The moment you realize that their judgment doesn't define your worth, you unlock a door in your mind. And with each brave step away from validation, you step closer to freedom. Not the kind others give you, but the kind you give yourself. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. If this resonated with you, hit like and follow. I've got more thoughts, truths, and stories coming your way.